Yeah, that was an interesting scene, definitely. My mind wandered. Anything new here? I guess not. I mean, otherwise we have this water-like sound. But I guess we're back at the mansion now. Back to the days when I could barely imagine the happiness I have now. I was a middle schooler at the time. A normal girl who thought about love as much as you'd expect of someone at that age. So I guess we're still Shannon. But in truth, it was wrong of me to have that dream. After all, I am furniture. Furniture is nothing more than a tool, not a human. As a person less than human, simply receiving an education was an enormous blessing. So in reality, even thinking about falling in love was more than I deserved. The Yoshidomiya family conference was a customary event held every October, but relatives sometimes visited at other times. Of course, they didn't come just to drink tea. On this day, Eva's family was visiting the Hat family on Rokenjima. The 3 members of Klaus's family and the 3 members of Eva's family had gathered in the parlor and were having a friendly chat about recent events. Genji had supposedly told Kinzo of Eva's family's arrival, but he still hadn't come down. Color me surprised. He was probably immersed in his research and couldn't spare the time. This often happened, so the others waited patiently for their fickle father to arrive.
How promising. Make sure you work hard under your father, building the skills you'll need if you want to lend him a hand soon.
Thank you very much. I've learned countless precious things from the many experienced people Father has introduced me to, and these were all things I could never have learned in school.
When you're in school, it's not math or language you're learning. What they're really teaching you is the right outlook and attitude for learning more. Once you got that base, you can finally start a long period of study that'll last your entire life. People who don't get this end up spending their whole lives as fools who never learn. Just getting full marks in math and language won't do you any good in your company. Indeed, that is exactly right. Here, son, your style of education never fails to impress. Schwartz isn't quite a full man yet. He'd better always keep that in mind and embrace his studies.
Stop it, dear. George is always giving it his all, right? Truly admirable. I was sure Jessica would learn from him. Sheesh. Fuck you too, Mom. Are you still holding a grudge about that test score? I'm studying for tests the best I can. At least don't say it here. Pissing me off, man. Once people started praising George for his diligence, the conversation usually turned to Jessica, who hated studying. Jessica made an openly displeased face, as though she'd known this would happen.
My. Schoolwork aside, it seems Jessica had better learn to choose her words a little more gracefully. How improper for a single daughter who bears her weight on her shield with a family crest.
Come now, she's quite appealing in her own way, isn't she? Times change. The time when we had to act all modest to entertain men ended long ago. That's right. I knew you'd understand, Aunt Eva. My headache is truly trying today. Are you okay? Oh, Natsuhi, you're looking a bit pale. Thank you, I'm fine. Still, time really has flown. It feels like just yesterday when you would run around half naked by the beach and come back soaked. Wasn't your Jessica-chan the same? And now she's a lady who fusses over how to put on makeup. I see you focused on your eyebrows. You look really cute today. Thank you very much. No one noticed, so I was a bit unsure of myself. A full smile rose to Jessica's face as the results of her own studies were finally appreciated. Eva smiled back in the same way. Then she turned that smile towards Natsuhi. Uh-oh. Come on, Natsuhi-ne-san. You must take notice of small changes in your own child. Poor Jessica-chan. You probably wanted your mother to notice first, didn't you? No problem. That person never notices anything.
Jessica, I cannot condone you speaking of your mother in such a fashion. Apologize.
Later, I will speak to you at length about your language. If you don't want kids getting in your way, just say so. I'm going to take a step outside. It's getting stuffy in here. Jessica was still at the age where the tests and entrance exams are pretty nerve-wracking. Recently, she'd clashed often with her mother, who was enthusiastic about her education. Excuse me? Gah! What? Oh, Jessica, who was trying to leave the parlor in a bad mood, bumped into Shannon, who was pushing a serving cart filled with tea. Uh-oh. Shannon, no need to worry about my tea. I'm just gonna go wander around the garden. Yeah, well, I don't know, that's the voice I gave him. Milady, Shannon, the tea is getting cold. Serve it quickly. My apologies. Shannon hadn't actually done anything wrong, but Natsuhiko felt like something shameful to herself had been shown, lashed out at her emotionally. This was something that often happened in the Yoshiromiya family, but it seemed Shannon wasn't strong-willed enough to just accept it and move on. She shrank back and cowered while serving the tea. She had the unfortunate habit of making more mistakes when she cowered. Her beautiful appearance ruined the peaceful atmosphere that had existed a moment before. It wasn't really Shannon's fault, but she thought she might be the source and felt a pressure on her chest. Her shaking fingers made the utensils clang, and you couldn't have called it graceful, not even just to be polite. The more pitiful she appeared, the greater the silence grew. The more irritated Natsuhi looked, and the more Shannon cowered. Shannon's thin neck felt like it was being suffocated and choked by the reaper known as stress. At that time, George spoke brightly, blowing away the stiff atmosphere. "This smells nice. What kind of black tea is it?" "Oh no, it's the copyright song again." This is... No, don't say it. I'll guess. It's a very distinctive smell, so I probably know it. Is it Earl Grey?" The grim stresser. "I think it probably is." "Yeah, I'll bet it's Earl Grey. When you get back to the kitchen, check the tin."
Oh, George-kun, you know a lot about black tea, don't you?
One of the company presidents who looked after me was very knowledgeable about black tea. I managed to pick up a little while listening to him discuss the subject.
Oh yeah, the president of Okonoki Foods. Yeah, that's sort of trivia is that guy's specialty.
The names of black teas often refer to the places they're made, right? So did this come from a place with that name? From what I've heard, there was a person called Earl Grey in England long ago, and it was named after him. Furthermore, this distinctive smell doesn't come from tea leaves, but from a fruit called a bergamot, which is a relative of the mandarin orange. Is that so? I've never knew that. Learning things like that makes tea tastes all the more delicious.
Same thing goes for alcohol and cigarettes. Luxury items have a taste of romance. Knowing stuff like this deepens the taste.
It's the same as reading the list of benefits on a medicine bottle. Natsuhine-san, you should try reading the explanation on your favorite headache medicine someday.
That is not very nice. Ah, that's a wonderful idea. Try it tonight.
Yes, I'll do so. Shannon-chan, try opening that pot. You should find some dried bergamot mixed in with the tea leaves. I have no idea how to pronounce that. I'm just going to call it bergamot now. Oh yes, it's in there. Something like dried orange peel is mixed in. Yes, that's probably bergamot.
Bergamot.
The main ingredient in Earl Grey's scent. The scent is vivid, so you might expect the taste to be intense, but it's still gentle and easy to drink. If you make it with milk, the scent should become more mild, which works great. If there's anything left in the pot after you've poured for everyone, you really should try drinking it with milk. Ah, yes. Thank you very much. I'm actually drinking Earl Grey myself right now, which I probably shouldn't do because it's the evening and the shit is probably gonna make me stay awake all night, but whatever. George gave her a small wink. Shannon finally realized that George had kind-heartedly swept aside the tense atmosphere in the room. Oh, he's good at that, apparently, and he had done it for the sake of Shannon herself, a cowering servant. The Yoshiromiya family did not pamper their servants. Any display of awkwardness would be harshly punished, so it was rare for them to be given a helping hand like this. No, I'm not drinking it with milk. I'm drinking it with nothing, actually. Thanks to George's kindness, Shannon managed to regain control of herself and finished serving tea without further incident. Stream bis zum Morgen. Yeah, well, we'll see. As long as she stayed calm, she could carry out her work elegantly and flawlessly. So you had a discussion last week at work how to pronounce bergamot, and you think the tea is pronounced. We can look it up in a dictionary. By the time the black tea was laid out on the table and its elegant scent filled the room, the atmosphere had completely returned to its former peaceful mood, and everyone praised George's knowledge. Shannon wanted to thank him for saving her, but it didn't look like she would get the chance. So she decided to at least thank him inside her heart, praying to God that George would hear it as she pushed the serving cart away. Could also be one of those words that is pronounced differently depending on, like, for example, USA and England. Judge Nissan always lends a helping hand at times like that, by changing the topic or something. Shannon and Jessica were in their rose garden. Jessica still hadn't returned to the parlor after getting into a fight with her mother and was nonchalantly killing time here. When I think back on it, I get the feeling this wasn't the first time he's helped me like that. Whenever I made a careless mistake and George was around, I'm pretty sure he'd always naturally smooth things over and restore harmony. Maybe it wasn't something as direct as picking up a fork that had been dropped, but that was his way of caring. Even servants have their pride. They want to fix their own mistakes by themselves. And if a guest lends them a hand, they lose face. He's really good at reading between the lines when stuff like that happens. Well, I guess it's kind of like an art to him. That guy's more of a show-off than he looks. That's not true. I think he's a really wonderful person. Shannon, you haven't fallen in love with George Nissan, have you? Once, Shannon had disagreed with Jessica in a slightly forceful tone, which immediately caught Jessica's attention. No, that's not it, I think. Come to think of it, I've hardly heard any stories about George Nissan and love. I think I remember hearing him say that family-oriented girls were his type, didn't I? Sweet, that fits you perfectly, Shannon. It does? I am not suitable for such a thing. Not suitable? Like hell you aren't. You've known him so long, you're practically a childhood friend. They say that when you start from a natural relationship where you don't think of the other as a member of the opposite sex, things start to move pretty fast once you finally start thinking about it. There's no doubt. Jessica loved teen magazines with this kind of story, and she was always getting excited talking about that kind of thing with her friends. She was very quick to pick up on love stories like this, so this wasn't the first time Shannon had been exposed to this kind of story. But this certainly was the first time she had started thinking of George as a member of the opposite sex. She was furniture, while George was an honored guest and a member of the Ushidomiya family. Until now, she'd assumed that even imagining any deeper relationship with him would be impermissible, so she hadn't thought of it. Since it was someone else's problem, Jessica poked fun at it, seeming to enjoy herself. It was all Shannon could do to hide her blushing cheeks. If George were to appear at a time like that, she'd have no chance of keeping her cool. They saw George come out from the entrance hall of the mansion. It looked like he'd seen them as well. He headed over, waving his hand. Shannon had to frantically try and regain her ordinary composure before George reached them. Grandfather finally came down. Oh no, run! Run away! Maybe that's why he left. Grandfather finally came down. Now they're having an adult discussion, so they chased me out. Escaping then was the right choice. It'd be better to kiss the angel of death than look at grandfather's face. Oh, you shouldn't speak that way. But you know, I think grandfather might think of us as angels of death. After all, we came here to talk about borrowing money for business reasons. That's right. This wasn't the customary annual October family conference. Ifa's family had visited to apply for a business loan from the head family. Kinzo had vast resources and he lent those out to his children. Of course they didn't borrow money because they were living in poverty. How would they expand their businesses with the vast sums they wanted to borrow? How much interest would be attached and how long would they have to repay it? This wasn't I'm hearing some really loud noises here, but I think it's from below me. This wasn't the sort of loan designed for the poor. It was a loan for those who were on the offensive. Kinzo strictly judged whether it would be worth lending out his fortune, and afterwards he strictly oversaw its use. So Rokkenjima would sometimes play host to this spectacle where relatives visited and described their businesses to Kinzo. To the parents, these meetings burdened them with the strain of having to move a vast amount of money. But Jessica, who lived on this isolated island, called Rokkenjima. To her, it was a precious opportunity to meet up with her cousins. So being able to talk with the occasional guest, such as George like this, immediately cured the bad mood she'd gotten from that fight with her mother. My family's totally stingy too. They've probably got money to spare, so why not lend it out graciously? Dad and grandfather will probably get pig-headed and act all important. It's natural to be prudent when lending money. Of course, my father will use what he borrows to expand his business, and he came with a plan that promises a solid probability of repayment. Everything else is left up to the presentation. But I really wish I could watch from the corner and learn. Mother chased me out. I'm a little let down. It seems the master still tends to scold Kraus-sama and Eva-sama as if they were kids. I'm sure she didn't want to let her son see that. As Shannon hung her head, she thought back on a scene familiar to those who worked with the mansion. Even Klaus, who acted haughtily towards his siblings, was still treated like a child by Kinzo. Shannon herself had often seen Kinzo slap Klaus and tell him to sit up straight. Oh damn. It was probably very embarrassing to be coerced like that at his age. Taking care to avoid being present at times like that was one of the important responsibilities held by the servants working here. But Dad... Good Lord, what are they doing below me? I just hope they don't wake up a certain person here. However, the fact that Shannon had ended up witnessing such a scene meant that she'd messed up at least once in the past. Yes, I imagine so. Maybe figuring that out and staying away is part of a child's duty. Ah! That a sight. Oh, it was not a, horrified ah. Probably more like a, that aside, the flowers in this garden are truly splendid this year. George stretched as he said that, and he smoothly changed the subject away from one that was a little gloomy. This time Shannon noticed it too. This person, George, could sensitively figure out the situation and always changed the subject to something harmonious out of kindness. It was so smooth that Shannon hadn't noticed it until today. Today, Shannon really had to admire the way George did that. Of the boys close to Shannon's age that she'd known, nearly all had been classmates during her period of mandatory education, but they had all been young and none had possessed the composure George had. Mere moments ago, he'd been just another guest, but right now she couldn't help but think of him as something more. However, such thoughts were mere distractions from her work as a servant. Shannon tried to chase them away with a small shake of her head. What's up? No, it's nothing. Shall I make some tea? I will prepare some more of that Earl Grey. So you've remembered the name of that tea. I'm glad. Thank you for your concern back there. Concern. Shannon was finally able to put her gratitude into words. If you wrote it out, it wouldn't be very long. But Shannon had needed a little spark of courage to say it out loud. But George played dumb. Being British, you have to have Earl Grey with milk. Oh, sorry. Not gonna get any milk now, though. What do you mean? I don't remember doing anything I should be thanked for. He seemed to be playing the gentleman in his own way, letting her know he wasn't doing it out of a desire for gratitude. George's response seemed to be more or less exactly what Jessica had predicted. She couldn't help but burst out laughing. See? Isn't he a bit of a show-off at times like this? No, that's not... Jessica poked fun at Shannon as the latter remained silent, red-faced. George didn't know the details, but he naturally joined in, laughing the same way. The three of them lazily walked around the garden, catching up on recent events. That reminds me, you remember the rose that Maria saw there in episode 1 and then it was gone? I wonder if that had any deeper meaning apart from, leading to the freak-out scene. But, I could imagine there was something behind that as well, but we'll see. George, as the oldest cousin, talked about his life experiences. Jessica talked about recent life on Dokkanjima, and Shannon talked about her recent work. They kept going on about these trivial things. Even when Shannon heard the others talk about deeply interesting things, she never felt any particular interest in the actual contents of their story. She was nothing more than a servant, and she had no intention of delving into her master's lives. She simply wanted them to enjoy their time speaking with her, and would only pretend to listen intently and nod at the right moments. But for some reason, the things George talked about today seemed to catch her interest powerfully. Even things she'd normally ignore felt like they contained a trace of kindness behind the words. For some reason, she wanted to know more things about George, no matter how trivial. Oh, she's falling for him right here. So she stared fixedly at him. She thought that as far as looks went, this Yoshiro George was probably about average and didn't stick out in any particular way. But he was diligent, serious, and had a deep prudence which allowed him to understand people's hearts and show concern. But she'd never noticed these things before now. She may not have met him many times, but she'd known his face for many years. Even so, she hadn't noticed him once until now. Shannon, embarrassed by her own obliviousness, blushed. George, perhaps thinking that Shannon would listen intently to his stories, kept talking happily and at length about things he'd done and seen. Happily and at length. But Jessica didn't miss that slight change in Shannon. So she decided she'd change the conversation to the topic she was sure Shannon was most interested in. Oh yeah, come to think of it, George Nissan, have you finally gotten a girlfriend or what? Where did that come from? Normally that reaction should have been an answer enough. But for some reason, as she was now, Shannon wouldn't be able to understand it unless he said it clearly. George Summer is very nice, so I'm sure, he's very popular. Well, quit it, Shannon. Isn't concerning him like that actually pretty mean? I wasn't trying to be mean. Well, I'm flattered that you have that mistaken impression of me, but unfortunately I still haven't had a relationship with any particular girl. After all, my looks are below average, as you can see, and I can't speak tactfully in a way that can entertain a girl. I don't think that's true, and I think a man's charm is decided by something that can be measured by his appearance. That's why, I think you might be considered, I'm a very attractive man, George. Oh, shit. Shannon was being uncharacteristically verbose. She hardly ever spoke at such length. George seemed fairly pleased to hear someone applaud his charm like this, but he was just a little surprised at the sudden high praise. Jessica, now sure her guess was spot on, appeared to be barely holding back laughter. Thank you, Shannon-chan. I hope I do bump into a girl who's generous enough to feel attracted to me before too long. Well, just look to the side. Yes, I'm sure you'll run into one. I'm sure there's at least one. No, a lot of girls who will recognize your real charm. She probably wanted to say that there was at least one girl very close to him. Shannon avoided saying that much, drawing a final line as a servant. But really? I guess I'm kind of embarrassed. He had probably never been praised this heavily by a girl before. George's face turned just as bright red as Shannon's. As she watched the two of them, Jessica giggled sadistically. Well, I'm sure you'll eventually bump into a wonderful partner, George Nissan, but I doubt you'll be able to properly escort your partner as you are now, right? It looks like you're diligent, but you've completely abandoned your study of that. What is that? Sorry about that. Basically, this episode will be a dating sim with Earl Grey. So far, that's fitting, yeah. Sorry about that. I'll start studying that bit by bit. And how do you plan to do that all by yourself? Are you gonna watch romance movies or something? Or are you gonna learn from Uncle Hideyoshi? You could all ask Kinzo. Sorry. Certainly not. Well, you're acting pretty triumphant. Men are no match for girls when it comes to this sort of things. Normally when George and Jessica got together, the parents would say George is diligent and admirable, and Jessica is lazy and rude. So it was probably unbearable fun for Jessica to have the roles finally reversed. George realized this as well, so he resigned himself to being the one getting teased for once. So, George Nissan, as long as you're okay with it, why not practice a bit with Shannon? It'll be your job to keep Shannon entertained all day long on a date. What do you think? Oh, what are you, my lady? When she heard Jessica's audacious plan, Shannon's face turned bright red with approval, and a donut of smoke started to rise from her head. Yeah, I think that's not really, possible, but I suppose I know what you mean. That's a very tempting plan, but I wouldn't want to burden Shannon, John. It'd just end up wasting one of her precious days off, wouldn't it? I'd be butting in on that psycho time that she should be spending alone with someone she really likes. I couldn't do something so boorish. I also don't have a person I have feelings for or anything. Totally not. Absolutely no, Baka. There's no need to hold back for my sake. Shannon's blood had all rushed to her head, and it looked like even she didn't know what she was babbling about. Jessica, who knew how Shannon normally was, seemed to be finding this hilarious. She couldn't hide her cackling laughter anymore. Is that true? I can't believe a cute girl like you would be single, Shannon-chan. I am a servant, so of course I don't have any relationships with boys, just with girls or what? Which means that if Shannon ever wants a chance at getting herself a wonderful gay... Oh, I just said a wonderful gay. I mean, just when she said she doesn't have any relationship with boys, I guess that made my mind go there. She needs practice with relationships too, right? So you both want the same thing. Sweet, that'll be perfect. Jessica irresponsibly cheered the two of them on. By now even George was hanging his head and turning red. George, I've been calling to you for a while now. Didn't you hear me? When Eva appeared in what was already an embarrassing situation, both of them got even more flustered. Jessica watched and laughed loudly. Mother. Sorry, I was so engrossed in our conversation, I didn't notice. Oh, Eva-sama, you have my deepest apologies. It looks like you young kids are getting really fired up together. You're all about that age. Oh, I know how kids your age can talk about that sort of thing forever. Hehehe. Oh, come on, you're still young yourself, Aunt Eva. Please, is she? Please tell us how you and Uncle Hideyoshi met. Oh my, there's no way I could say that. It was in a strip bar in Nevada. Oh, sorry, you all really are so young. So what is it, Mother? You called because you wanted something, right? Your father and the rest have finished talking. And we're going to talk to Grandfather about you, so come on. Oh. I wouldn't look forward to that. You were looking away and thought she actually said that. I mean, is it ever, like, for what we know, that might be true. Let's just consider that canon for now. About me? What could that be? The same thing you were all talking about just now. You know what I mean, right? Oh, that. That isn't really something we need to talk to Grandfather about, right? What's going on? Wait, George Nissan, are you getting married? Congratulations. No. Didn't I just say I didn't have a particular woman I was interested in? That isn't something to brag about, is it? Good grief. Eva smiled bitterly, looking a little exasperated. Oh, I get it. George Nissan is one of those, right? An omiai, a marriage meeting. A marriage meeting, you say? Well, yeah. I totally wanted to go there. Surely as a man, George wanted to find a partner by himself and bring her home with him. So it seemed he thought it a bit pathetic to meet his partner for the first time in a marriage meeting arranged by his parents. Shouldn't marriage meetings be done at a more mature age? Still don't feel like I've become a full-fledged adult. Of course, we have no desire to rush into an immediate engagement or marriage, right? There's nothing wrong with deepening your friendship first, and then having her move to our family register after we've gotten older and settled down. Judging by Eva's forceful attitude and George's non-committal one, the others could catch a glimpse of the story behind this marriage meeting. They didn't know who George was supposed to be meeting, but it was surely someone who would profit Eva's family in a business sense. The very fact that they'd be satisfied with a mere engagement to deepen the relationship between the two families rather than an immediate marriage made it feel almost like a political maneuver. You see, marriage isn't something you should enter into only after you start liking someone. You marry first and then you adjust. If you marry based purely on emotions, you'll always end up regretting it. There's certainly nothing wrong with choosing a person with a secure background for your partner in life and then developing your affection later. Yeah, I would say that is your point of view, and we'll leave it at that. Aunt Eva, isn't that kind of rude to Uncle Hideyoshi? True that. I love that man. I want to always be with him and to live my life by his side. Eva-sama, that's wonderful. Truly splendid. Thank you. But we built up those feelings while we were husband and wife, you see. And I believe that in the future we will be much, much closer than we are now. I think that's what's best for a married couple. Still, I don't think you can use that to argue that it's okay to marry someone you don't even like. But it also doesn't mean that it's okay to marry anyone as long as you like them. It only takes an instant to get married, but your life as a married couple will last a long, long time after that. So you should search with prudence and avoid making decisions based on momentary emotions. Don't you think a matter like this would be better handled by us rather than a person lacking in life experience such as yourself? Well, that may be true, but I'm proud of you, my only son. You've grown magnificently, and I'm sure you'll do us proud no matter where you go. And now that Battler-kun has left the family register, you are the father's only male grandchild carrying his blood. We must prudently choose a fitting partner for you. As everyone related to the Yoshirome family knew, Eva adored George immensely, but that didn't mean she had pampered him. She had been strict with him and had raised him into a wonderful boy who wouldn't betray her expectations. That was why she treasured him so. Your partner certainly won't be selected based on your parents' profit and loss. I'll bring you a suitable and truly wonderful woman. At this moment, your immaturity might make this seem unpleasant to you. But if you're going to take my advice on anything, listen to me now. Have I ever failed to act in your best interest? No, you haven't. That's enough for now. So let's go. We're keeping Father waiting. Hurry to the mansion. Well, sorry you two. See you later. George bowed to the two of them, and after bowing once more to Shannon, he dashed off to the mansion. I'll be going with them. Forgive me for interrupting such an entertaining conversation, Jessica-san, Shannon-chan. No, please don't worry about it. You just ruined everything, but okay, come on, Shannon. Let's go. Yes. Oh man, Shannon's probably gonna cry now. I mean, I'd be sad if I was her after hearing that. So, like, she probably just noticed feelings for him, and then her hopes get dashed immediately like this. I'm sure you'll meet someone wonderful soon too, Jessica-chan. A wonderful person suitable for you. So if he's at the same level as me, you mean a guy with shit grades? That kind of pisses me off. And of course you too, Shannon-chan. I'm sure that a wonderful man suitable for you will appear. Yes, thank you very much. As Eva giggled and smiled, she approached Shannon's ear with a hand over her mouth. Uh-oh, as though she was trying to tell her a secret. Huh? Oh, damn. I'm sure you'll find a perfect match for a lowly servant like yourself. Have you forgotten to be grateful for your education? Know your place. Well, that's not what I meant. George is the eldest grandson, carrying father's blood. He's the person who may bear the burden of the Yoshinomiya family someday in the future. To answer to that expectation, he has studied tirelessly, entered a wonderful college, and is getting wonderful grades. Did you really think you could snatch George away, you uneducated, incompetent, unqualified, uncultured swine? I know she said servant, but swine just fit even better to me. Those malicious words all poured into Shannon's ear without spilling a drop. To Shannon, it was like cold water was being poured in there. I didn't mean... This was all whispered to Shannon in secret, and with the same smile as before. Jessica, who could only see Eva's expression, didn't think it was anything other than Eva telling Shannon some embarrassing story about love. When their secret conversation ended, Eva patted Shannon's shoulders as though she was urging her on. Don't worry, I'm sure you'll find a perfect match for a partner, right? Hehe. Okay, Jessica-chan, see you later. Yeah, see you later. And make sure you tell me about you and Uncle Hideyoshi next time. No way. Eva laughed loudly and headed back to the entrance hall. Behind Jessica, who was cheerfully waving her hand, Shannon reflected very, very deeply on those words of Eva's about knowing her place. Is that what made her smash the mirror? It's time for me to take a serious look at how full of myself I've been acting. I forgot. I'm furniture. Furniture isn't human, so I am a being who must feel gratitude for even being treated like a human, and I am not permitted to wish for anything more. People sometimes develop affection for furniture they're used to using, but that is an emotion on the human side, and the furniture has no right to hope for such a thing. It's enough that furniture serves with simple honesty day after day. That feeling I got when talking to George-sama and Jessica-sama is the same as a forbidden drug to me. In other words, it may be an emotion I must never experience. Shannon, you've had your head in the clouds for some time now. Do you not feel well? No, my apologies. Natsuhi's words were right on the mark. Even Shannon couldn't believe that she hadn't noticed Natsuhi until she had called. Normally it was essential that she focus on her cleaning at this time of day, but she'd spent all her time sighing and hardly making any progress. Even when there aren't any guests around, you must always be alert. Behavior like this is shameful for an Yoshinomiya family servant. Yes, ma'am. I will take care from now on. The head and my husband will return very soon. Have you finished cleaning the study? Have you finished cleaning the staircase? My apologies, not yet. Yes, I know. So I had Luna do it. While you were plodding around cleaning the hallway, she finished cleaning the study and the staircase. That's because I wanted to clean it properly, so it took some time. Shannon was simple and honest, so she'd always carry out her tasks seriously and properly without any omissions, so she was always slow with her work. In contrast, Lunan cleverly avoided doing extra work whenever it was possible. Do we have any info on this Lunon? I suppose it's not really an important character. So she could complete her jobs with a result that looked almost the same to an outsider, but in a much shorter time. In other words, she was a shrewd employee. Compared to that, it's probably fair to say that Shannon wasn't very shrewd at all, talking back to Natsuhi when Natsuhi was in a bad mood. Of course, there was nothing that Natsuhi couldn't stand more than a servant talking back. Her forehead creased, and she spoke sternly, and yet her slow, admonishing style of speech was even more terrifying and finally made Shannon realize she had said the wrong thing. Then perhaps you should aim to do a truly thorough cleaning. Shannon, I order you to clean the reception hall right now. It is an important hall where several pictures treasured by the head are displayed and where honored guests of the Yoshinomiya family are welcomed. Clean it thoroughly so that not a speck of dust remains and so that even you are satisfied. Of course, you will finish before the day is out. Until you finish that and report to me, you will not be permitted any food or rest. Understood? Yes, madam. Oh, damn. That is good. Servants should endeavor to only use those words. The next time you talk back, your punishment will be even more severe. So with that in mind, engrave these words into your heart. Yes, madam.
Boom! Just for Christian.
Sorry. Thank you for your guidance. You are welcome. Behaving as though her headache was troubling her, Natsuhi headed off down the corridor. When she couldn't see her anymore, Shannon hung her head and sighed. This was what happened when she had her head in the clouds. Even though I'm bad at everything I do, I should be able to at least carry out the cleaning as well as an average person can, right? It's because I can't even perform that very well that I'm crying so pathetically. But what's even more shameful is that not only have I been unable to perform a single bit of cleaning well, but just now when Natsuhi was scolding me, I imagined that person appearing and rescuing me. So, she's definitely fallen for him now. If only George-sama were here. Would he casually step in and save me? Surely he'd show up cheerfully, intentionally acting like he didn't know what was going on. Nimbly change the subject and make me forget I'd ever been rebuked by Natsuhi. I kept envisioning him, suddenly appearing from the other side of the door, or the other end of the hallway. I envisioned the kind of person that would be an appropriate partner for him in a marriage meeting. And I envisioned how unfitting I was for him. Eva clearly told me. It's been repeating over and over in my dreams. Oh, there he is. You're still as clumsy as always, Nissan. The lady has been in a bad mood since this morning. That just now happened because you talked too much, when you should have just hung your head in silence. Kanon-kun. Kanon was suddenly there. His footsteps were always quieter than a cat's, and he never left any trace of his presence. He probably could have stood there forever, and she still wouldn't have noticed him. The expression on Kanon's face was one of hatred. Why, is Goda here? Sorry. He made that expression for Shannon, who didn't know how to do it herself. Madame and Lunon can fall into hell. That person knows where Madame checks and only cleans those areas. Her cleaning just now was like that. I know because I saw. She wasn't really cleaning. She's just the worst kind of parasite, leeching of your thorough cleaning. You mustn't use such dirty words. Dirty words pollute your clean soul, Kanon-kun. So at least don't use those words in front of me, okay? Kanon turned away as though sulking. It was a reaction that hid his true feelings, which was very like Kanon, but I was a little happy. He was getting mad for my sake. Cleaning the reception hall will be tough. I'll help. Thank you. But I was the one Madam ordered, so don't worry. Don't you also have your own work, Kanon-kun? It's a filthy job. My soul was polluted long ago. Damn, that sounds dark. Kanon then hung his head and bit his lower lip. Just hearing you say you'll help is enough for me. If you don't go back to your own job, then you'll be punished as well. And that would make me sad. Shannon knew Kanon's character well. Sometimes he didn't think enough about himself. If I don't refuse forcefully, he will help me even if it means neglecting his own job. Kanon was a little sad that his goodwill had been rejected, but he realized that what he was doing would only hurt her more in the end, and he gave a single small sigh. Understood. Do your best, Nissan. Yes, and I am also partly to blame. You aren't at fault at all, Nason. No, I am. So go now. Kanonkun's face showed that he still hadn't completely accepted it, but without being any more obstinate, he disappeared. Even though Kanonkun came to give me words of comfort when I was down, even so I was dejected again because it wasn't him. That in itself was a sin. Did she die because of that? It went far beyond any dream the likes of me could be permitted to see. I don't know my place. I mean, then again, it was a coincidence, right? That she was in the part of the mansion where people got killed. Or was it? Shannon, who had neglected breakfast, already felt her concentration begin to waver. Wait, what? She had neglected breakfast and now she has to clean whole reception hall and can only eat when she's done? Damn, that doesn't sound like a good day to me. But if she didn't finish up cleaning the reception hall, she wouldn't receive Natsuhi's permission to eat. That cruel Natsuhi had surely told the kitchen something to that effect. I have to respectfully receive Madam's punishment. That's right. My position in the world is furniture, and I've been intoxicated by a dream that's beyond me. I finished cleaning the hallway and went to the reception hall. Maybe my hunger made my nose more sensitive. I could sense a delicious aroma wafting from the kitchen even though it was far away, and my empty stomach was encouraged even more. Until I finished up here, I wouldn't get any soup. I just had to resolve myself to doing it. Uh-oh. Several portraits were hung in the reception hall. One of those portraits was thought to hold a special meaning amongst the servants. It was the portrait of the witch. That wasn't its true name, but everyone in the mansion called it that. The name of the woman with elegant blonde hair, drawn as the subject of that portrait, was Beatrice. It was whispered that she might be the former mistress of Kinzo the family had, and also that she was the great witch who had given Kinzo the gold of the legend. The witch Beatrice, master of the night on Look in Jima. She was gracious to those who respected her, but she would surely curse those who made light of her. It was in Shannon's character not to neglect rules and beliefs such as those, so she thought of the portrait of her other master as that person herself and always treated it carefully, treasuring it. And it had become part of her daily routine to tell the witch, who only existed inside the portrait, the secrets of her heart. She was furniture. Furniture doesn't complain, cannot complain. So she had no right to speak her mind about her difficult days. She had no right to open her mouth and say those words. So she at least spoke her mind inside her heart. She spoke her mind inside her heart using words she couldn't say aloud, and protested to the formless witch. Of course, the witch didn't answer. She didn't console, and she didn't laugh it off. Shannon could only interpret that silence as she liked, as though the witch was responding agreeably. Beatrice-sama, please listen to the story of my worthless self. As Shannon wiped the dust from the witch's portrait, she spoke that inside her heart. I certainly am incompetent and uncultured, just as Ifa-sama said. I am not a person, so maybe I have no right to love. But in that case, why was I given a heart that can know love? At that point, Shannon held back her tears for a moment. The sound of the rain, which had started falling along with the chill air in the reception hall, made her feel as though her shabbiness had increased to another level. Real furniture doesn't have anything like a heart, so they don't have to love people, right? So they don't feel pain. If I'm just another piece of furniture, why do I have a heart? If it's going to be this painful and this harsh, I was never given a heart like this. Holy shit, what the fuck? I see. So a heart was given to furniture. It would seem that even that man is capable of some quite amusing things every now and then. What? The witch that never answered or laughed, answered and laughed. Was it my imagination? Was I hearing things? No, that's wrong. After all, the next words became a voice, and I could hear them, not with my heart, but with my ears. Oh shit.